Scorpio, welcome to a special reading for Twin Flames for September and October 2019. It's Raina here. The reason I'm doing more than 1 month at a time for this reading is that it's not meant to be like some kind of timing type of reading, but more of a reflective type of reading to look at situations regarding your relationship. I'm just going to read from the website where I got this spread. So I want to give thanks to, I think it's called emeraldlotus.ca. So I think it's a Canadian based website. And this person who I guess created the spread, I don't know, they got this from this quote about what twin flames are from a website called soulevolution.org. Twin flames are the other half of our soul. We each have only one twin, and generally after being split, the two went their separate ways, incarnating over and over to gather human experience before coming back together. Ideally, this happens in both of their last lifetimes on the planet so they can ascend together. So you probably haven't had many lifetimes with your twin. The reason I'm reading this is just in case you've wandered into this reading and you really don't understand. Twin flames don't normally incarnate together except for a higher purpose. Now, this is the part that I wanted to emphasize because this seems to be what people experience in their twin flame relationships. When twin flames, this is a different website called Alpha Imaging. Okay, so I just want to give credit for these statements. When twin flames do incarnate together, the coming together is often chaotic and stressful, physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Their relationship is very intense. The romantic, loving version we all think of is really for twin souls. Twin flames come together as two mirrors of each other. They are there to reflect back to each other the truth of themselves. What is reflected is not only the beauty of themselves, but also their imperfections, attachments, and emotional baggage. So I just wanted to read that in case you weren't sure. And I'm going to put out the cards, and then I will tell you what each position means. And you're the first sign, so Scorpio, so let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. It'll be interesting. The way my table is set up, it's a little bit difficult to, I guess I can go like this, to get all these cards in viewing range. If there's any that are not you can't see, I will be holding them up, so don't worry. There's 9 cards altogether, so that's another very interesting thing about this. Okay, last 2 cards I can kind of prop up, I guess, so that they're visible. All right. Well, this looks like it's going to be very interesting. Okay, get this bad boy down here. Well, I'll put him over here. All right. Okay, so the first card that I picked is for the card to represent our energy or your energy as a twin flame couple. The Empress is a card of the divine feminine, I think. I mean, it's definitely the feminine archetype. And it's associated with motherhood, creativity, femininity. So an example would be 2 artists, 2 temperamental artists who live together, or maybe you keep splitting up. Life makes you go in different directions sometimes, but just that push-pull. And maybe you are parents together and nurturing a child. The sexual energy. And of course, Scorpio. Scorpio represents spiritual sex. I have mentioned in the past, Scorpio has this reputation as being this very sexual sign. And I think I read, and people have commented to me on Scorpio videos, that they go celibate for long periods of time because they do take sex very seriously. So this could be like a tantric yoga type of a thing. And not that it's like some kind of like really organized thing, but your sexual act to you could be very sacred and could be part of a very prominent part of the relationship, but not in a frivolous way. The second card, and I also have to like look at where the second card is because they're kind of scattered all over the place, the different positions. The second card represents what our purpose is together in this lifetime. And we have the Knight of Pentacles. Now this is a very practical card that's connected to Taurus. So this would be like a building energy that has to do with even like being like great workers together, but in a material sense. So I would say amassing material wealth and working hard to create something together on the material level. And so what the purpose is for that may vary. Now, it could be as simple as, having a tribe, creating your own tribe of children. And for anyone who thinks that having children is a selfish act, which is very common these days, or even having like a big family, there may be instances where it's very intentional, where people are not just being, careless, irresponsible about conceiving children, but they have a divine connection to that concept. And this would be part of that. And building this, because the children will be raised intentionally. It's not just like mindless breeding. It's about really bringing children into the world who are at a higher consciousness. So that might be part of what it involves with you and this person. And but definitely this practical energy of consistently working to manifest something on the material level, on the material plane. The third position is an important lesson we must learn in this lifetime. Another earth energy. Queen of Pentacles. I would say being a mother to the earth. So this could even, what I was thinking, maybe there's some kind of a connection to the land where you and this person want to buy land. Maybe you want to be farmers, even like if it's a micro farm, and you want to be caretakers of the earth. But regardless of how this plays out, or the queen is the mother, and so she is mothering the earth. This could be like gardening, but kind of like radical gardening, where you are helping other people as a couple to grow their own crops and to be more self-sufficient. That could be a possibility as well. And the lesson that you are learning is about the importance of Mother Earth for whatever reason. Maybe one of you strays and goes off and has a corporate job, or that you're out of touch with nature and you have to come back to that. The other person draws you back to it. Okay? And then the fourth position is, how can we grow from this lesson? And, how do we usually grow? Through the spirit, but in touch with your higher self. Again, giving the last scenario, someone who gets kind of lost to themselves, where they kind of get lost in the world. One of the things that the High Priestess is about is going within and tuning into your higher self, because that is the part of you that is always connected, has a direct connection to God, to spirit, and knows, where you're supposed to be on the journey. And part of the journey might be to be lost. That might be part of the blueprint in order for you to experience that sense of coming back to yourself and understanding what that means. I just, for some reason, the prodigal son came into my mind. And I'm not somebody, I went to church growing up very religiously, pardon the pun, but I am, I never really paid too much attention to the scriptures. But to me, that prodigal son is yourself. It's like not this actual person, but it's like you coming back to yourself, and yourself welcoming you back and saying, because it resonates, because you've kind of like consciously uncovered the truth, and then you can come back there. And you do this you can do this consciously. The high priestess, could be about meditation and just spending time alone, maybe alone in nature even. But the point is that you will have probably this flash that lets you know that you're on the right track, that you resonate with, oh my gosh, yes, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, not that. I got caught up in the world and now I'm back where I need to be. Okay. This is wonderful because, I don't get many reversed cards anymore, but what a reversed card to get, because this is an example why you should read reversed cards, because sometimes the reversed card has a more positive connotation. Not that negative connotations are bad, because we're experiencing contrast, so it does set us, gives us something to chew on and to reflect upon. But this is a particularly good card. This is the Nine of Swords in reverse, and this position is what our lives look like after completing this lesson. This is like letting go of anxiety. So the bottom line is that if one of the partners does wander off, they will feel a sense of not resonating with where they're at. And that can that can create a lot of anxiety. If you're in any, for anybody watching out there, if you feel like every day you wake up with anxiety and you're going to work or you're in a relationship that is just not making you feel good, the chances are that is not where you're supposed to be. And so all these other symptoms like, the gnawing in the pit of your stomach and things like that are there to kind of like let you know you're off base, you're off track. So this is when you find yourself, you will see that you start to relax, that you start to feel calm. And that is a sign that you are in the right place. Okay, the sixth position is something we can do to strengthen our bond. The Emperor. Well, I think that the Emperor, is pretty infamous for having very rigid boundaries. But sometimes these things are necessary. Definitely as a Scorpio, I would say that you're the kind of person who can be quite rigid and believe in this is black and this is white. And yet, even though that might be a bit too inflexible, sometimes, with couples, there have to be very clear-cut expectations, or else the relationship can kind of flounder. If both people are not on the same page, for instance, if they don't have the same, maybe it's as simple as having a similar outlook, similar goals. But in the twin flame situation, that's not really, I shouldn't really say it like that, because this is a relationship that's meant to have contrast. Maybe there are like certain boundaries that are just completely, that you do not cross. Even if the relationship is full of turmoil, you say to the other person, we never talk down to each other. We never call each other names, for instance. We never take it that far. It goes without saying, no physical stuff. There can be different things that you do and that you're very clear about, that you do not allow this within the relationship. Because if it is kind of a very dramatic relationship, that means that each person is drawing out those strong emotions in the other, and yet there are different ways to handle it. There are more constructive ways to like express your feelings than, and especially your strong feelings, than with these kinds of attacks on the other. Okay. A way, 7 is a way you can heighten your vibration. This is very interesting, because the Queen of Swords is really not wanting to get too much into the emotions, wanting to really look at things from a more rational point of view. Now, especially with you, Scorpio, being a water sign, this is especially crucial for you. One thing that I would say for you is using self-inquiry. One form of it that's kind of popular, I mean, Buddhism has its own version of this, I would say, and I think a lot of intellectual people are attracted to Buddhism for this very reason, where there's a lot of mental kinds of, questions, like Zen, asking a lot of these Zen riddles or koans, where it's, kind of like drawing out the truth through these different means. But I would say, if you know anything about Byron Katie, that is one form of self-inquiry. She has a process called the work, where, she has 4 questions that you ask yourself. One of them is something that I use all the time, which is it true? And so if you have a thought in your head, and let's say that your partner does something to you that you feel is egregious, and as often happens, that little voice in our head, sometimes it can be that, to me, it almost seems like a demonic voice that says, he doesn't love me, she doesn't love me, this is proof of that. The part of you that wants you to suffer, what is that part? Who knows, right? The pain body. Okay. Now, if you want to like really disarm yourself from that comment, you say to yourself, is that true? Do I have proof just based on what they said or did that they don't love me? And then she's got other questions that you ask yourself. There's like 4 main questions. And it unravels these thoughts that we tell ourselves. And that's a form of self-inquiry. So you can check that out. She's got stuff online. I mean, on YouTube, she's got interviews and, workshops where she's actually putting it into motion if you're interested. Okay, and then the 8th position is something my twin is mirroring for me. Now, this could be at this particular juncture, and this is the Ace of Wands. Now, mirroring means that the other person is kind of like acting out what is true for you, or maybe what should be true for you in some cases. So the Ace of Wands is a very positive card. This is about, sometimes I could get something that might seem kind of negative, but this is about enthusiastic new beginnings, or maybe even like some kind of an independent type of, life for yourself, working for yourself, living on your own. Maybe you have been in need of going and starting totally new, afresh. And by the way, from what I understand, and you can correct me if I'm wrong about this, if you are kind of more familiar about twin flames than I am, that sometimes twin flames are involved in other relationships. I mean, people have written to me to tell me that the twin flame left kind of abruptly and went to, with somebody else, and maybe they even have children with that person. And so the Ace of Wands to me is like breaking free and living a life for yourself. So maybe your twin is doing that themselves so that you can see the value in doing it. And what do, Scorpio? You may react to their declaration of freedom, and you may be even more trying to be more controlling over them and trying to get them to do more of that. And people do these things not because they are trying to be negative. They're doing it because they don't know what else to do. And so rather than try to fight against that, if your twin is showing that they have broken free of something, maybe that should serve as inspiration for you to do the same. Scorpio is a fixed sign, so you have a tendency to be very rooted in place and you love the familiar, but sometimes you have to just kind of, declare your freedom, because you may be kind of trapped in a situation that you are really wanting to get out of, but you don't know how. What can you do to help your twin reach their highest potential? So this is almost like you mirroring for them. And I got the World card, and I was wondering, what this last position would be, because it seems like such a closure type of a card. It's the last card of the major arcana. One thing that the World card relates to is travel. And that can be that sort of expansion that the soul craves, because one of the ways that we can help ourselves to grow, which is the purpose of life as far as I'm concerned, of expansion means that you have to stretch your boundaries. Now, you could argue that physical travel is a superficial version of that, because you can go to another country and still have a closed mind, and that's certainly true. But even in those cases, you're going to come up against experiences that are completely foreign to you, pardon the pun, and that will impact you, if only on a subtle level. The other thing that this card can represent is the need to I'm trying to think of it, like tie up loose ends, gain closure on something. And this is, I think that if you want to help your twin to reach their highest potential, is that you're not kind of holding on to them energetically in terms of, expectations or anything else. In other words, you agree to, if this is like some part in your particular journey, to like even let the relationship go. Because what I just read you before is that they were saying that sometimes they're not even incarnating together. And so if you're like hanging on to your twin, hoping that you can reunite, and yet maybe they're in another relationship, and you, for some reason, being a Scorpio, you have a hard time letting go of them because you feel such a strong, strong pull. One of the best gifts you can give them is to, I don't know if I should say goodbye to them, because it's really, I mean, you're obviously connected at the deepest level, but to let them go and let them know that you've let them go, and tell them that you will allow them to live, whatever life they feel they must live, and being happy about that, not being manipulative, still with a hidden agenda, but really truly meaning it. And that will free them. And because this is a mirroring type of relationship, you will actually free yourself, Scorpio. Because, like I said, I get people who are talking about these types of relationships, and they say, I feel so strongly connected to this person. They're my twin flame. And they use that as a way to try to kind of control that person. And, it's very interesting how kind of like sneaky and subtle it can be when you talk about manipulation, because there's such a thing as spiritual manipulation. I'm convinced of it, where a person will say, I think we're really meant to be together, and I just feel it in my heart. And they think because they have these feelings that the other person should just drop whatever they're doing and be with them. And, this is a very curious relationship as far as I'm concerned, this twin flames relationship, where one or both people might be involved in other relationships, and yet they have this intense connection. So I don't know what to make of it, but I can say that you have to adapt to the nature of this type of relationship and not treat it like any, romance. This is like spiritual work. And so it's not meant to necessarily be fun and games. It might be a very purifying type of an experience. But the World card and the Ace of Wands makes me think that it's time to embrace your own freedom, but also to grant the other person the freedom to live their life as they choose at this juncture in their journey. Okay, Scorpio, I hope that you enjoyed that. And if you'd like any kind of personal reading, the link to my website is below. Take care. Bye.